Now let's talk about array functions. As I have mentioned before and we have seen so far, arrays are very useful and powerful. So it's a good idea to know about some of the most useful functions that can be applied to an array. I think there are more than 70 or 80 built-in functions, and now we are going to learn about the most useful ones. So let's go straight to the point and start with the first function, array filter. Array filter is a very useful function that gets 3 arguments. Array filter. The first argument is the array itself. The second argument is a function. This callback function returns true if we want to keep the item and returns false if we don't want to keep the item. The last argument is the mode we want to use our array filter with. There are 3 modes. The first mode, which is 0, is the default, which means value of each item is given to the callback function. So if I write something here, item, this item is the value. This item variable represents the value of the array, each item in the array. So this is the default. The second mode is array filter use key. When we use array filter use key, here the variable that is passed to our callback function is the key of each item in the array. And the third mode is array filter use both. Here we are passing the value and the key to the function. So based on the mode we choose, the argument we pass to the function represent different things. So let's see an example. Here, let me create an array, and this array is, and this array represents a bunch of languages, for example, English, and the level of my knowledge in that language. For example, English fluent, and I don't know, German, I know the basics. Then in Turkish, I'm good, hopefully. In Turkish, I'm good. In French, I know nothing, so I can pass unknown. And in Spanish, I know the basics. Okay, so now here I have an array. I want to filter the ones that are in a good level. So I can use the first default mode, which is 0. If I want to use the default mode, I can simply ignore passing that argument because PHP is going to use the default. But here, for the learning purposes, I just keep it here. If it's 0, the variable that I pass here represents the value of each item. Okay, so and here this value is level. Let's write level so our code would be more readable. And I want the level to be good. So here, if the level is good, this comparison is going to return true. So my function my function as a whole is going to return true. And then array filter is going to keep that item because this function returned true. And otherwise, if the level is not good, this comparison returns false, so the level is not good, then my function is going to return false and array filter is going to skip that item. So let's see. This array filter will return a new array let's say filtered array. This returned array has all the values that I want. So let's see what is the final result. I want to print the array to see how many items are in there. So let's php index.php. I expect it to have only Turkish. So let's see. Perfect. It's an array with only one item, and that item is Turkish because it's good. But if I say, okay, I want all the languages that are not good, then it gives me English, German, French, and Spanish. Perfect, because this Turkish returned false and array skipped that item. Now let's use another mode. Let's say I want the key here, so the key which represents the language itself, I want this language to be English. I want to get the level for my English. I want to keep only English. So let's run this code again. And as you can see, because here and let's change that to equals to English. And when I run the code, it keeps only English. Now if I use array filter, use both as my mode, here it gives me a value and keeper. So the value represents the level, the key represents the language and level. Okay, I want the language to be English, and I want the level to be equal to good. So now I expect an array to have Turkish because the value, the level is good, and the English because the language, the key is English. Let's see the code, and perfect, it gives me English because this part returned true, and it gives me Turkish because this part returned true. Now let's talk about the next array function, which is array merge. This function merges all the arrays that you pass as an argument and returns an array. You might ask how and based on what conditions it merges the array. Well, if the key is number, then it will append it to the previous array. But if the key is a string, then it will compare both of the arrays and keep the one and updates the value of the last one. Let's see an example. Let's say I have an array of the people I know, for example, Pratham, Vito, Francesco, then Simon, and then I have another array B, and I have again other people like Vito, again Oliver, Meet, James, and let's add Simon again. Let's see what happens if because here all of them, both of the arrays are indexed arrays, meaning that they have numbers as the key of each item. So now if I say array merge and then I pass array and array B, merged array equals to this. Now if I print my merged array, I get Pratham, Vito, Francesco, Simon, and again Vito, Oliver, Meet, James, and again Simon. I have duplicated values here because both of the arrays are indexed. But let's say I have two arrays with a string as their key, for example, like this, English, German, and Turkish, and I have another array which another key pair. I have Turkish suddenly changed to fluent, French changed to basic, and English turned to bad. Let's say I want to merge both of these array because these two are associative array, meaning that they have a string as their key. If I merge them, I expect the values to get updated rather than duplicated. So let's see what happens. As you can see, because the second array is array B, my values are updated based on the last array. So here I have English turned to bad, German to basic, Turkish to fluent, French from the last one or this one are basic, then Spanish basic because it has merged this one with this one, it has kept Spanish. We didn't have Spanish here, so it kept it from this list. And then in the second list I have Chinese, and it has added the Chinese as well. So here I have a merged array of both of these items, and the items that existed get updated based on the last array, and the items that didn't exist have been added to the array. Now let's talk about array map. Array map is a very useful function in PHP, and it lets you apply a function to the elements of the given array and returns an array with changed elements. So it looks like this: array map, it's get function and then the array itself. Okay. The function is a callback function. With callback functions, there are two ways to pass the function to the argument. The first one is a predefined function, which means if I define a function here like add hashtag, and then I have an item as an argument, and then I will return hashtag plus that item, okay, which is item. When I want to pass that function to my array map as a callback function, I have to put the name of the function inside a string without any parentheses, without any passing arguments. Array map will do that for me. So here array map gets this as the name of a function that exists. It says, okay, I want to find this function, I want to apply this function to every item in this array. So let's say I have a list of languages, for example English, German, Indian, Chinese, and Arabic. Now this array map will go through every one of these items and apply this function. This function gets the name, this item, and adds a hashtag to that item. The return array is a hashtagged array. Okay, so let's see, print r hashtagged array. Let's see the result. As you can see, it has changed every item in the array and added a hashtag to it. English, German, Indian, Chinese, Arabic. The second way that we can pass callback functions as an argument is anonymous functions. What are anonymous functions? Here our function had a name. This was the first way. And the second way is, instead of define the function somewhere and then call it here, we can define the function here without a name. This is an anonymous function. We can pass arguments, we can do everything we want. Here it does exactly the same thing. So now when I run the code, it gives me the exact same result, and I have just noticed that it's Chinese. Okay, so there were two ways: predefined or anonymous. With all the callback functions in PHP, we have these options. We can use a predefined function for our callback function, or we can use anonymous function. Array map is a very useful function in general, for example, and it's very clean. So if I didn't want to use array map, I could still achieve the same result, but by running a for loop, for example, I could say for each array as item, I want to create a new array, and inside this new array, I want to add the item, and I want to add a hashtag to it. And here, if let's change that, let's print the new array, and if I run the code, I will get the exact same result. I could do that without using array map, but array map is very good, it's very fast, and it's very readable. So you can use both of the approaches. I personally prefer array map. Now let's go to the next array function, which is array chunk. Sometimes we have to deal with a very large array of data. It would be much better to split the array in different chunks and then work on each chunk one at a time. For example, if you have an array with 1,000 elements, you can split it in arrays of 10 or 100. An array chunk function is going to help you with that. Let's see. Array chunk gets 3 arguments. The first argument is the array itself, so I pass it here. The second argument is the size of each chunk. For example, if I have an array of 5 elements, I know 5 elements is not much, but for here I just want to create an array with 5 or 6 elements, and I want to split it in chunks of 2. Okay, and the last item, preserve key, is false by default. It indexes your array with numerical values, but if you have an associative array and you want to keep the keys, then make sure to set this to true. So because I want to create an associative array and I want to keep the keys, I will change that to true. Let me copy that language array from up here. Okay, I have an array of languages. I want to work with them, but I realize, oh, this is a lot of languages and I don't want to work with all of them at once. So I want to create chunks of 2, like these two, and this one will be alone, as this will be the only item in the last array. So this array chunk will return a chunked array. It would be an array of arrays. Let's see the result. Print r chunked array. If I clean my terminal and I run the code, I will see that here it has created an array, and inside the array are arrays with the size that I have specified here, which is 2. So it kept 2 item here, 2 item here, and because Spanish was the last item, it kept it as only, it added to the last array. Now when I want to work with this array, I can choose like chunked array, the first one, and then work with that. As I said here, 2 items is not going to make a lot of difference, but imagine if you have an array of 10,000 data and you want to split it in chunks of 100 or 1,000, and it's going to help you a lot. Let's see what happens if I change it to false. It's going to keep the values only. It will change the keys to numerical values. So let's run the code again, and as you can see, it has removed the keys. Now each array is 0, fluent, 1, basic, 0, 1, and 0. But because I wanted to keep the keys, because the language name was the key, it was important for me, I specified it as true. Now let's go to the next function, which is array search. Array search is very useful and it helps you find the key of a value you're looking for. Array search takes 3 arguments. The first argument is a needle. It's what we are looking for. It's a search term. For example, let's say good. Then we have the haystack, and this is the array which we want to find the needle in. So let's say array. and then we have strict as true or false. By default is false. If it's true, it will going to find the values that are identical. So do you remember when we talked about equal and identical in PHP? If, for example, I have an item like this, 2 as in a string, and I'm searching for 2 as integer, if this strict is true, it's not going to find this one for me. But if I keep it as false, it's going to say, okay, these two are equal. They are not identical, but they are equal. Here I want to keep the default, which is false. I have an array of languages, as you can see here. Let me comment the last part. I have an array and I want to look for the ones that are good. Let me see. Here I want to search for good in my array of languages. It will return the key of that value. So here I expect it to return Turkish. Let's see what happens because it's a key. I can echo it. It's not an array. Let's echo key. Here, as you can see, it says Turkish. If I had two values that matched my search term, then PHP is going to return the first one. Let's see. PHP will return German because this is the first one. And if it couldn't find the value we are looking for, it will return false. So when we use array search, it's a good idea to always check if it could find it or not. We can do that like if the key is not false, then echo the key, the language is key. But if it didn't find what I was looking for, I can echo I couldn't find what you're looking for. Now let's see what I'll get. The language is German because here is good, but let's say I have been searching for pro. I have been searching for advanced, then I'm not going to get any result. I couldn't find what you're looking for because there is no advanced here. Perfect. Let's go to the next array function. The next one is array replace. Array replace is very simple yet very powerful. Takes at least 2 arguments. The first argument is array. The second argument and after that are the arrays that are going to replace the original value with. PHP will compare the replacement array with the original array, and for every key, if the value is different in the replacement array, it will update that value. Let's say I have an array of languages and I have array updated, which is another array, but some of the values have been changed. Let's say array, here I have the languages, and let's copy that again, and let's call it array updated. Let's remove Spanish, let's add Chinese. Let's update this one from Turkish good to Turkish fluent and German to good to bad. Now let's store the returned array in a variable. Updated array equals to this. Now let's print our updated array to see what we'll get. PHP index.php, and as you can see, I get English. Okay, the same. German has been updated. Turkish is fluent, perfect. French is unknown. Okay, and then it looks for the items in this one that doesn't exist in this one, and will add the original. Then it will add the items that were not in the original array but they were in the new array, and then it will store all of them in an array, which here we have printed. If I had other arrays, for example arrays updated b, and I pass that as the argument as well, Remember that this array, because this has been passed as a last argument, it's going to replace all the values that come before that. So if I change it back to good, or let's change it to even fluent, my German is going to be fluent now because this is the last item. Great, now let's go to the next array function. Let's comment this one out first. The next function that we are going to learn are about sorting an array. If you want to sort an array in PHP, there are 3 factors that you should have in mind. First is, do you want to sort the array by value or by the key? Then the second question that you should ask yourself is, what is the order of your sort? What is the order? Is it ascending? Is it descending? Is it natural? Do you want to specify your sort type yourself? And the last one is, do you want to keep the association? Meaning, do you want to keep the keys, or do you want to assign new indexes? Do you want to keep the keys, or do you want to remove the keys and reassign them with new indexes? So let's get started with some of the most useful and common array sort functions in PHP. Let's say I have an array of languages. Let's say here, where is my original array of languages? Let's add some items like Chinese. I don't want it to be a key value pair. I want to add Indian. I want to add Italian. Okay, perfect. Here, let's add a comma here. And now I want to sort this array. Yes, for some of the items, the language is the key. For some of the items, the language is the value. And some of them are associative, some of them are index, have numerical keys. So let's print the original array to see what we are working with. Let's say here, as you can see, some of them have indexes, some of them have a string as keys, some of them have number as keys. And with array sort function, we have to notice something. Till now, with all of the functions that we have learned, the function has created a new array and returned an array to us that we have stored in the variable, and then we use the variable for the rest of our code. But with array sort functions, PHP is not going to return a new array. It's going to change the original array. So be careful with that, because the original array is going to be sorted and it's going to be changed. It's not going to return a new array to us. So let's see some examples. The first function is sort. This sort function, do you remember I said we have 3 questions to ask? Okay, the sort function will sort based on value, and the order is ascending, and it will remove all the keys. So let's see. I have an array and I'm going to sort it. Now, as I said, it will sort the original array, so I can print before and after of the array so you can see the difference. Print the first one is the array itself, the original array, then we sorted it and it has removed all the keys. Then it has sorted based on the values and in ascending order, B, C, F, G, G, I. The next function is rsort. Rsort is like sort. The only difference is that it will sort the array in a descending order. So if I comment this out and I run the code again, as you can see, the original array, and it has removed all the keys. It has sorted based on the values, and it has sorted in a descending order. The next sorting function is ksort. As the name suggests, it sorts based on keys. not values. The order is ascending, and since it's sorting based on the keys, obviously it's going to keep the keys. So let's see the result. As you can see, it has sorted based on the keys: English, French, German, Spanish, and then the numbers 0, 1, 2. And it kept the keys because it was sorting based on them, so obviously it's not going to remove them. And it's an ascending order. KR sort is like K sort, meaning that it will sort based on keys, it will keep the keys, but instead of ascending, it will sort the array in a descending order. So let's see. The original array is like this, and the new array is like this: 2, 1, and Turkish, Spanish, German, and then the number of 0. You should be careful with this part because here, as you had seen, first we have strings, then we have 0, and then we have numbers. But here we have numbers, we have a string, and then we have 0. The next sorting function that we are going to learn is A sort. A sort is very interesting because it's like sort, but it will keep the keys. So it will sort based on the values. The order is ascending, and it will keep the keys. It's not like sort that would remove the keys. So let's see the result. As you can see, this is the original array, and then we have sorted based on the value: basic, Chinese, fluent, good, Indian, Italian, and it has kept the keys for me so I can use them later. And as you have probably guessed based on the function name patterns, AR sort is like A sort, but in descending order. It will keep the keys, it will sort based on values, but it's in the descending order: unknown, Italian, Indian, good, fluent, Chinese, and basic. Perfect. Now that we have learned about the sorting functions, let's go to the next function. Next function is a very useful one. Array unique removes the duplicated values from an array. In case of duplication, it will keep the first value and remove the rest. So let's say I have an array. I have like AMIR, PHP, YouTube, then AMIR again, then PHP 7, then 2022, then YouTube again. If I run array unique, it's going to remove the duplicated value. It will keep the first one, and it will return the unique values, unique array, and it will return the unique values as an array. So I can print out this unique array. Let's see the result. php index.php. There is an unexpected this. Oh yes, here this I forgot to. Now if I run the code, php index.php, it will keep AMIR, the first one, PHP, YouTube, and 2022. It has removed this AMIR and this YouTube. Perfect. This array unique also gets a second argument. The second argument is a flag. The flag is to tell PHP how to compare these values. If I, for example, had numbers like here, as you can see, I have 2022, and I also add 2022 as integer. If I run the code, it will only keep one of them because it has compared to see if they are equal. They are not identical. I want to remove the identical duplicates. So this one is an integer, this one is a string, and I want to keep both of them. Here I will pass it as a flag. The flag is sort string. The sort string is the default, and it will compare 2022 as a number and 2022 as a string, and then since both of them are equal, it's going to remove them. But I want to keep both of them because one of them is number, one of them is in a string. So instead of using sort string, I'm going to use another flag, which is sort regular. Sort regular. And let's see the result. As you can see, it has kept both of the items. And if I, let's say, var dump this to get more detail about the items in the array, as you can see, one of them is string and the other one is integer. Perfect. The next array function that we are going to learn about is array combine. Array combine is another useful array function that creates an array by using one array for the keys and another for the values. The first argument of the array is the keys and the second argument is the array of values. For example, here array combine, the first one is the keys and the second one is the array of values. Here let's say I have, let's say keys equals to English, German, French, and the values are fluent, good, and unknown. Now this array combine will combine these two and it will return an array, and I want to store that array in a variable, so I can print it out. Print r, the combined array. Let's run the code, php index.php, and as you can see, it has combined the first array with the second array. English fluent, German good, French unknown. The size of the keys and values should be the same, otherwise you will get an error. So let's say my keys had 2 items and my values had 3. Now if I run the code, I'm going to get an error. Both parameters should have an equal number of elements. Great. Let's talk about the next array function, which is array reduce. Okay. Array reduce is a very useful function that reduces the given array to a single value using the callback function. This callback function gets 2 arguments, carry and item. Let's see. It gets an array as the first function, and then it will get a callback function. The callback function, let's use the anonymous function. Callback function gets 2 arguments. The first argument is carry and the second argument is item. Carry holds the return value for the previous iteration, and item is a current item in the array. Let's see an example and I will show you what each of them are. Let's say I have array of numbers. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I want to add all these numbers. So I pass this array to array reduce. So I want carry, which is the value from the previous iteration, to be carry itself plus the item, and then I want to return carry. Okay, carry, not the array. Okay, and I want to return carry. So here, this is what is going to happen. It's going to go through array. The first iteration carry is nothing, it's 0. Then we have item, which is 1. It's going to say, okay, carry is equal to carry, which was 0, plus item, which is 1. Then it will going to return carry, which was 1. It will go to the next iteration. Carry here will be 1 and our next item is 2. So here it will add 1 plus 2, it will be 3. It will return 3. Then we have 3 plus 3, it would be 6. Then we have 6 plus 4, it would be 10. And then we have 10 plus 5, it would be 15. And since it will return a value, I can simply echo that. It's not an array, so I don't need to print it. Echo sum to see what I will get. PHP index.php 15. Perfect. Here I simply added all the values inside the array. I should say that if you want to simply just sum or calculate the product of the values inside an array, you can use another function which is called array sum for adding all the items in an array and return the sum of them. And we have another function which is array product, which gets an array and it will calculate the product of all these items together. So instead of writing this, I could simply use this echo array sum. Let me comment all of them and this one, and if I run the code again, it will return the same result. If we echo the product, it will return 120. Perfect. For things like sum and product, as I said, we can use array sum and array product, but there are so many other things that we can do with array reduce. It's a very useful tool to have in your toolbox. Now let's talk about the next array function. The next array function is array flip. Array flip is very simple yet very useful, that helps you flip an array. What does it mean to flip an array? Well, it means to change the array in a way that the keys become values and the values become the keys. So let's say I have, again, let me bring the same array for languages. I know it's been very annoying. Let's bring the array for languages again. Here I will array flip an array, and this will return an array where all the values have become keys and all the keys have become values. So flipped array equals to this. Before I show you the final result for flipped array, let me mention that in an array the keys can only be string and numbers. Okay, so if our values had something like true, which is not a number and not a string, when it becomes the key, because it's not a valid key, PHP is going to throw an error. The other thing you should know is that keys, all the keys should always be unique, whether they are number or they are a string. You cannot have an item with the key of 0 and then add another number with the key of 0. It would be impossible. It will update the same key with a new value, but it will not keep both of them. So here, because we have good and they become the keys, we will not see both Turkish and German. We will only see one of them. So let's see the final result. And as you can see, fluent English, good Turkish. Why it's Turkish? Because at first it has created a key good with the value German. Then it tried to add good with the value Turkish because the key had already existed in the array. It has updated it to Turkish because values do not need to be unique, but the keys need to be unique. And you might lose some of your items if you flip the array. Now let's talk about next function, which is array diff. If we want to find the items in an array that are not present in the other array, we use array diff. Here, let's say I have an array. Let's copy this language array again. And now I have another array, array B. This array B does not have French and Spanish. And we also have array C, and we also have array C. Array C is like the original array but does not have English and German. Now we want to find the items in the original array that are not present in array A and array B. There are 3 different array diff functions, and we should choose one of them based on what we want to compare. For example, we have array diff. If we want to compare based on the values, we should use array diff. For example, we say array B and array C. It will return an array, and within this returned array we have the items that are different. Let's print this array and see what we'll get. php index.php, and as you can see I got an empty array. But let's say if I remove array C and run the code again, so if I compare array B and array, the original array, I will get French and Spanish, because in the first part we are comparing based on value. We have fluent, we have good, we have unknown, and we have basic. Here we have fluent and good, so we do not have unknown and basic, exactly French and Spanish. But when I added array C, because unknown and basic are in array C, and when we compare them to the original array, we do not get anything. It's an empty array because some of the items are in this array and some of the items are in this array. Now if I remove Spanish from the third array and run the code again, we will get Spanish because basic is in the original array, but we do not have that value in array B and array C. The other array diff function is array diff key. Array diff key will compare these arrays based on the key of each item. So if I run the exact same code, but rather than array diff, if I use array diff key, let's see the result. I will still get Spanish because in here I do not have Spanish, in here I do not have Spanish, but here I have Spanish. But now if I, for example, change this to good again, because we are comparing based on key, not value. If I run it again, I will get Spanish again because here I do not have a Spanish. But if I run the previous function, because we were comparing based on values and we already have good in the other arrays, we will get an empty array. And let's see the last array diff function, which is array diff associative. This function will compare the arrays based on both key and value. So the both key and the value should be the same. Here, if I run the code again, I will get Spanish, which is good. If here I have Spanish again, but the value is unknown, it's still going to show me Spanish because in the original one we have Spanish good, but here we have Spanish unknown. So the value and the key are not exactly the same. So we are still getting Spanish. For example, we have French unknown. We have French here, which is unknown. If I change it to good, I will get French as well, because again, the value is not the same. Although here we have good, but the keys are different. So it will compare both of them. It's very good to know all of them. Sometimes we need to get the different items based on value, sometimes based on key, and sometimes we need to compare both of them. So it's a good idea to know all three functions. Now let's talk about array intersect. With array diff, we want to find the items that are not present in the other arrays. But with array intersect, we want to find the items that are present in the other arrays. So let's copy all these arrays here in this section. And let's use array intersect. Exactly like diff, we also have array intersect key, and array intersect associative, because we need to specify if we want to compare based on value, if we want to compare based on key, or if we want to compare based on both key and value. So let me bring all of them here. I can change array diff to array intersected array, and let's uncomment them, change array diff to array intersect. Okay, now the first one, let's see what we'll get. Print r intersected array. Let's see the result. php index.php. As you can see, it is comparing based on value, German, Turkish, and Spanish, and we have good. Here we have good, here we have good, and here we have good. So it will keep all of them that have good. Here we have unknown, here we have unknown, but here we do not have unknown. Now if I change English to unknown, like this one above, I will get that here as well, because unknown here exists, it exists here, and it exists here as well. Now let's see array intersect based on the keys. If I run this code, I will get Turkish only, because here we have Turkish, here we have Turkish, and here we have Turkish. But for example, English we have here and here, but we do not have English here. French I have here and here, but I do not have here, and German I have here and here, but I do not have it here. That's why we don't see the other languages. Now if I compare based on both of the key and values, let's see, English I do not have, Turkish here is good, and here is good. I should still get Turkish. Let's see, and as you can see I still get Turkish. But if I change one of them to something like fluent and I run the code again, I will get an empty array, because now we have Turkish but the value is different. We are comparing based on key and value itself. It's very good to know all the three of these functions, because sometimes we need to compare based on value, sometimes we need to compare based on key, and sometimes we need to compare based on both key and value. Now let's talk about array change key case. Sometimes you might need to change the case of the keys in your array. Maybe you want to do it because of the consistency of your data. Maybe you want to convert it to JSON and you want it to be the same format. For whatever reason, it does not matter. It's very easy to do that in PHP. All you need to do is to use array change key case. It gets two arguments. The first one is the array itself, and the second argument is a case. For example, lower, you can say case lower or case upper. Okay. Now let's say I have the same array of languages. Here, as you can see, all of them are in lowercase, and I want to change all of them to uppercase. For whatever reason, I can easily do that. I can say, okay, changed keys equals to array change key case. It will return an array. Now, if I print this new array, I will get the same array, but the keys are now all in uppercase. And sometimes you might get something like English, German, Turkish, French, and Spanish. Sometimes you might get something like this, and we want to change all of them to lower. We can easily do that by doing case lower. And now if I run it, all of them are in lowercase, and the data can be unified, the consistency of data can be maintained, and it's very good. It's a very simple function, but it's very useful, especially when you load your data to an associative array from another source and the keys are not consistent with your own data. In an associative array, you should get the value by key, and if the key is not consistent in being lower or upper, it would be annoying to remember all of that. We can easily use this function and fix it. The last function that we are going to learn in this section is a function that helps us to convert an array to strings. How can we do that? For example, let's say I have an array of some words. For example, hello. This is an array. And now I want to convert it to a string. And I can easily do that with implode function. This implode function gets a separator. Here I want it to be space. Use comma to convert all these array to a string with comma separated structure. But here in this case I want to use space. Then you will pass the array itself. Here in this case is array. Now this implode function will return a string, and I can store it in a variable called sentence. And because it's in a string, I can simply echo that sentence. I don't need to print r that. And as you can see, hello, this is an array. Here the first part is because of this section, and if I comment that out, if I run this, I will get this is an array with a space. Now if I change it to something like comma and run it again, as you can see, I can get a comma separated structure. Hello, this is an array. It's very useful, and we also have a function to do the opposite of this, meaning that you can convert a string to array, and that is explode. So let's say I have a string here which is in comma separated structure, and I want to change it back to an array. Let's say new array equals to, now I can use the function explode. Explode is like implode but does the opposite. Here we again get a separator because here my separator is a comma. I want to use comma again, and as a second argument I will pass the string sentence. Now it will go through this and split the text from commas, and each section will be an item in my new array. Now let's print that new array to see what we'll get. Print R the array, and if I clean this terminal and run phpindex.php, I will get hello, this is an array. Yeah, this is perfect. These two functions are super useful. We have reached the end of this section about array functions. Now let's go to the next topic.